Mountains have a way of calling to us long before we ever stand at their feet. Even from a distance, they rise like guardians of the earth, silent, patient, impossibly ancient. Their jagged silhouettes cut into the sky, catching the first rays of dawn long before the world below awakens. And in those moments, when the light spills across ridge after ridge, you can almost feel the pulse of something larger than life. The mountains have been watching this world for millions of years, long before the first human ever lifted their eyes toward the horizon. And in their stone faces, shaped by time, wind, ice, and fire, they hold stories of the planet, of survival, of exploration, and of the fragile balance that sustains life. If you stand at the base of any great mountain range, whether it's the Himalayas, the Rockies, the Andes, or the Alps, you feel something shift inside you. The air changes. It becomes thinner, lighter, sharper, as if the mountains have filtered out everything unnecessary. Time feels slower, sounds grow softer, and for a moment the world seems to breathe with you. For thousands of years, humans have looked at mountains with a mixture of awe, fear, and reverence. Ancient cultures believed gods lived among their peaks, hidden from mortals behind swirling clouds. Travelers risked their lives crossing them, explorers vanished inside them, and entire civilizations built their identities around them. But mountains are not just beautiful or mystical. They are engines of the planet. They shape weather patterns, store fresh water, create microclimates, and support ecosystems unlike anything found elsewhere. Nearly half of the world's population depends on mountain water. Entire species survive only because of the unique conditions found at high altitudes. And geologically, mountains are among the most dynamic places on Earth. They move, grow, crumble, and rise again, slowly, invisibly, yet constantly. If you've ever climbed a mountain trail, you know how the world changes with every step. The forest thickens, then thins. The air cools. The wind becomes more insistent. Sunlight feels different, more direct. The smell of pine gives way to the mineral scent of rock, and eventually the quiet becomes absolute. Up high, away from the noise of cities and machines, you hear only your breath, your heartbeat, and the constant whisper of wind. Scientists often say that mountains are natural laboratories, places where evolution runs experiments. Species adapt in extraordinary ways. Plants grow close to the ground to escape the cold. Animals evolve larger lungs to handle thin air. Birds learn to glide on updrafts that can carry them across entire valleys without a single flap of their wings. Even humans adapt. Our bodies respond to altitude by producing more red blood cells, adjusting fluid levels, and altering respiration. In a sense, mountains rewrite the rules of life. But the story of mountains begins long before anything lived on their slopes. To truly understand them, you have to go back to a time when the Earth was young, restless, and violently alive. A time when continents drifted like rafts across a molten mantle. A time when the collision of tectonic plates unleashed unimaginable forces, pushing rock upward with the strength of 1,000 storms. This process, called orogeny, is slow, astonishingly slow, but relentless. It can take tens of millions of years for a mountain range to rise. Yet in geological terms, mountains are temporary. Wind grinds them down. Glaciers carve them apart. Rivers slice through them like liquid knives. So even the tallest peaks we see today are snapshots in time, caught between creation and destruction. As the sun moves across a mountain range, every peak and valley tells a different story. Basalt cliffs formed by ancient volcanic eruptions, layers of limestone that once lay beneath a shallow sea, fossils of creatures that lived long before humans existed, and towering granite spires forged deep underground, now exposed after millions of years of erosion. To walk through the mountains is to walk through time itself. Travelers who spend enough time in high places often talk about a strange sensation, an awareness that feels both grounding and humbling. When you're surrounded by peaks older than recorded history, it becomes easier to understand your own place in the world. The mountains don't move for you. They don't change because of your presence. They simply exist, indifferent and eternal. And somehow, that indifference feels comforting. The mountains ask nothing from you except respect. Yet despite their strength, mountains are fragile. Climate change is reshaping them rapidly. Glaciers are melting at unprecedented rates. Snowpacks are shrinking. Alpine animals are losing habitat. And the communities that depend on mountain water are facing uncertain futures. To protect mountains is to protect the life that flows from them, literally. Nearly every major river on Earth begins in the mountains, fed by melting snow and seasonal rains. Without them, valleys would dry, forests would collapse, and billions of people would lose their primary water source. But even with all the scientific knowledge we've gathered, the emotional connection people feel to mountains remains just as important. There's a reason climbers describe reaching a summit as a spiritual experience. There's a reason hikers return to the trails again and again, even after difficult journeys. And there's a reason that, throughout history, mountains have symbolized strength, endurance, wisdom, and freedom. In many ways, mountains reflect the best parts of ourselves, the part that struggles, endures, and keeps rising no matter the obstacles. As our journey begins, imagine yourself standing at the base of a great peak. The wind brushes across your face, carrying the scent of pine and snow. Clouds drift slowly across the summit, casting moving shadows across the stone. The landscape is wide open, but at the same time it feels enclosed, protected. You take a step forward and the ground beneath your feet crunches softly. The journey upward has begun, and while the mountain doesn't care whether you reach the top, it welcomes you nonetheless. Because the beauty of mountains isn't in conquering them, it's in experiencing them, one slow, deliberate moment at a time. As you make your way higher, the landscape begins to shift. Forests give way to meadows dotted with wildflowers that bloom for only a few weeks each year. These delicate blossoms survive in conditions that would kill most plants: intense sun, thin air, freezing nights. Yet every spring they return, painting the slopes in shades of purple, yellow, and red. Botanists call this alpine resilience, a term that captures the miracle of life thriving in impossible places. But to a hiker standing among the flowers, it simply feels magical. Past the meadows, the trees begin to shrink. Their trunks twist into strange shapes, shaped by relentless winds. These hardy survivors include species like the bristlecone pine, one of the oldest living organisms on Earth. Some bristlecone pines are nearly 5,000 years old, having lived through ice ages, droughts, fires, and storms. Their resilience is almost unimaginable. They grow slowly, inch by inch, preserving their energy for survival rather than speed. If they could speak, they would tell stories of a world long gone, of civilizations rising and falling, of times when the land looked nothing like it does today. The air grows colder, the forest thins, and soon the landscape becomes something else entirely, a sparse, rugged world where only the strongest creatures survive. Marmots whistle from between boulders, warning their families of intruders. Mountain goats leap effortlessly across cliffs that would terrify most humans. Birds ride invisible currents of air, barely moving their wings as they glide along steep slopes. Everything here is adapted for altitude. Scientifically, high-altitude environments are among the most demanding on Earth. Oxygen levels drop with every 1,000 feet of elevation. Temperatures fluctuate wildly. UV radiation becomes more intense. Yet life pushes forward. Snow leopards stalk the Himalayan cliffs with silent precision. Andean condors soar across the Andes, using updrafts to stay aloft for hours without flapping. Ibex, chamois, pikas, each species plays a role in the delicate ecosystem of the mountains. One of the most fascinating aspects of mountain environments is how quickly they can change. A clear, sunny morning can turn into a violent storm within minutes. Clouds form with alarming speed as moist air is pushed upward by the mountain slopes, cooling rapidly and releasing rain, hail, or snow. Mountaineers know this all too well. Many accidents happen not because of technical difficulty, but because the weather shifts unexpectedly. The mountains reward those who respect them and punish those who underestimate them. As you climb higher, the trail becomes steeper. Rocks crunch under your boots. Your breath grows heavier as your body adjusts to thinner air. Yet there's a strange peace in the struggle. Step by step, the world below becomes smaller. The horizon expands, and that quiet determination inside you, the one that tells you to keep going, becomes stronger. Perhaps that is why mountains have always symbolized human resilience. They remind us that every great journey is made up of thousands of small, uncomfortable steps. Eventually, you reach a point where vegetation disappears entirely. What's left is stone, snow, and sky. This is the alpine zone, a realm shaped by ice and wind. Here, glaciers have carved deep valleys, leaving behind sharp ridges and towering cliffs. These glaciers, once far larger than they are today, sculpted much of the world's mountainous terrain. Even now, they continue to shape the land, slowly grinding away at rock, feeding rivers with meltwater, and reminding us of the raw power stored in frozen landscapes. At this altitude, silence becomes almost absolute. The wind whispers through cracks in the rock, but otherwise the world feels still. You might hear the distant rumble of falling ice or the echo of rocks tumbling down a faraway slope. But mostly, you hear your heartbeat, your breathing, the sound of your own presence in a place that rarely hosts human life. Climbers often describe a unique sensation at high altitudes, a clarity of thought, a feeling of being sharply aware of everything around them. Scientists attribute this partly to adrenaline, partly to focus, and partly to the brain adapting to thin air. But many describe it as something deeper, a sense of communion with the natural world, a reminder that, despite our modern comforts, humans are still creatures of the earth. It's in places like this where the fragility of life becomes evident. A storm can form without warning. Temperatures can drop below freezing even in summer. A misstep on loose gravel can lead to disaster. And yet people continue to climb, not because they seek danger, but because mountains offer something rare: perspective. Up here, daily problems feel smaller, noise fades, the mind quiets, and all that remains is the present moment, raw and unfiltered. As you approach the summit ridge, the wind picks up. It rushes across the stone like a living force, carrying with it the cold breath of glaciers and the warmth of sunlight reflecting off distant peaks. The sky feels closer now, so close it seems you could reach out and touch it. And then, after hours of climbing, you take your final steps. The world opens before you. Standing on a mountain summit is unlike any other experience. The view stretches endlessly in every direction: valleys, rivers, forests, and distant peaks layered like pages of a storybook. Clouds drift below your feet. The wind hums, and for a moment you feel weightless. Not physically, but emotionally, spiritually. Everything that seemed urgent or stressful fades into insignificance. The summit is a reminder that life is bigger than we often allow ourselves to believe. But the mountain story doesn't end at the summit. In fact, it continues with every ridge, every glacier, every river that begins high above and flows down through the world below. Glacial meltwater feeds some of the most important rivers on Earth: the Ganges, the Brahmaputra, the Colorado, the Yangtze, and countless others. Without mountains, vast regions would be uninhabitable. Cities like Denver, Kathmandu, La Paz, and Innsbruck rely on the freshwater stored in snowpacks and glaciers. Yet those glaciers are disappearing at an alarming rate. The Alps have lost more than half their glacial ice in the past century. The Andes are seeing rapid retreat. Even the Himalayas, home to the planet's largest concentration of ice outside the poles, are melting faster than scientists predicted. This isn't just an environmental problem, it's a humanitarian one. Entire communities depend on the timing of snowmelt for agriculture, drinking water, and hydropower. If that rhythm changes, the consequences ripple across continents. But mountains are resilient, and so are the people who live near them. Indigenous communities have developed sophisticated knowledge systems to navigate and survive these rugged landscapes. In the Andes, farmers build terraced fields along steep slopes to prevent erosion and make the most of limited water. In the Himalayas, Sherpas have mastered high-altitude living, developing unique physiological traits that allow them to thrive where oxygen levels are dangerously low. In the Rockies, Generations of ranchers and climbers have learned to read the landscape with precision, understanding the signs of storms, the migration patterns of wildlife, and the seasonal rhythms of the land. The deeper you travel into mountain regions, the more you realize that these landscapes shape culture as much as they shape climate. Music, traditions, stories, and even languages evolve differently in isolated valleys. In the Alps, yodeling developed partly because the sound carries across steep terrain. In Nepal, prayer flags flutter across ridges, carrying blessings in the wind. In the American West, entire communities formed around the challenges and opportunities presented by mountainous terrain. But mountains also shape the imagination. Writers, artists, and philosophers have found inspiration in these towering landscapes. Some come seeking solitude, others adventure. Some seek clarity, others simply the feeling of being small in a vast world. Mountaineers often describe their journeys not as battles against a summit, but as lessons in humility. The mountain teaches patience. It teaches respect. And above all, it teaches that reaching the top is never the true goal. The journey itself, the struggle, the beauty, the quiet moments, is what stays with you. As you begin your descent, the world changes again. The sun's angle shifts, painting the mountains in deeper colors. Shadows stretch across the valleys. The wind softens. And once more, life emerges, birds returning to their nests, animals stirring, the first hints of forest scent on the breeze. If climbing a mountain feels like ascending into another world, descending feels like returning home, carrying something new within yourself. Scientists often say that mountains are among the last truly wild places left on Earth. Despite trails, camps, roads, and towns, vast areas remain untouched, remote, unexplored. There are still glaciers no human has ever stepped on, valleys no one has visited, cliffs no one has climbed. In an age when satellites map nearly everything, the mountains remain a refuge for mystery. And that mystery is part of the reason we're drawn to them. Mountains remind us that not everything in the world needs to be known or controlled. Some things simply exist, beautiful, dangerous, powerful, and free. As twilight settles over the peaks, colors deepen into shades of blue and purple. Stars begin to appear one by one, faint at first, then brighter. Up here, far from cities, the sky becomes a cathedral of light. The Milky Way stretches across the heavens, a river of stars flowing above ancient stone. The mountains stand in silhouette, dark and silent, as if guarding the night. This is the mountain's true language: vastness, silence, endurance, a language older than humanity. And as you watch the stars wheel slowly overhead, you feel the same sense people have felt for thousands of years when they look to the peaks: wonder. As night settles across the mountains, the temperature drops sharply. Frost gathers on boulders. The wind takes on a colder edge. The world feels both peaceful and alive. And in that stillness, you begin to understand what the mountains have been teaching all along. They teach us resilience. Not the desperate, exhausting kind, but the quiet strength of granite standing firm against storms. They teach us perspective, the realization that our problems, though real, are not immovable. They teach us humility, reminding us that the earth is vast and powerful beyond our imagination. And they teach us connection, to nature, to history, to each other, and to something deeper within ourselves. The journey down the mountain is gentler, calmer, almost reflective. The sounds of the world return: the trickle of water, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of an animal somewhere in the forest. You step across streams fed by snow you saw hours earlier. You pass meadows where flowers close their petals for the night. And eventually, you return to the world of people, where lights glow in windows and smoke rises from chimneys. The mountain now stands behind you, dark against the sky, but its presence lingers. And that is the true gift of mountains. You carry them with you, their silence, their strength, their beauty, their lessons. Even long after you leave, some part of you remains tied to those slopes, that sky, that sense of awe. For centuries, people have sought answers in the mountains. Some found faith, some found clarity, some found adventure, and some simply found themselves. Whatever mountains mean to you, they continue to call, as they have called to countless generations before us. As our journey comes to an end, imagine once more those towering peaks beneath the stars. Imagine the wind, the cold, the thin air, the endless view. Imagine the feeling of standing somewhere that has existed for millions of years and will continue long after we are gone. The mountains remind us that life is precious, fleeting, and extraordinary, and that the world still holds wonders worth exploring. So whether you've climbed a mountain, dreamed of one, or simply admired them from afar, remember this: the mountains will always be there, waiting, patient as time itself. And whenever you choose to return, whether in person or in memory, they will welcome you back with the same quiet, powerful presence. Thank you for taking this journey. If you enjoyed exploring the mountains with me today, consider subscribing for more cinematic nature journeys like this one. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever visited a mountain that changed you? And as always, thank you for watching. Until next time, keep exploring, keep wondering, and keep your eyes on the horizon, because the world is full of mountains yet to be discovered.